Number 4. Aniva Lighthouse. On the southern coast of the island of Sakhalin, there is an old lighthouse that was built on a small chunk of rock back in 1939. This is known as the Aniva Lighthouse, and it was constructed by the Japanese during a conflict between Russia, as they both wanted to claim the island for themselves. During the 1800s, the archipelago was mostly uninhabited, and the land was up for grabs. The Russians and Japanese fought for ownership of this land, and a buildup of military forces quickly ensued. Eventually, to avoid war, both nations agreed to split the land down the middle. During this time, a string of lighthouses were built along the rocky coast of Sakhalin in order to signal the incoming troop carriers and merchant ships. One of these lighthouses in particular was constructed on a part of the island known as the Aniva Cape. This place is known to be one of the most inaccessible areas on the whole island. The project was led by Shinobu Miura, a Japanese engineer. Building began in 1937, and it took them 2 years before it was finally finished. To the Japanese, the lighthouse was called Nakashiretoko, but for us English speakers, it's known as the Aniva Lighthouse. This area was in dire need of a lighthouse because the waters in this corner of the planet were extremely dangerous for vessels. Frequent fog, rocky shoals, and underwater currents threatened to destroy any ships that dared to sail through the cape. Legend has it that after the project was completed, a smaller copy of the lighthouse was presented to the Japanese emperor. This building consisted of a round-shaped concrete tower, along with a lower outhouse. It is 102 feet tall and has 9 floors in total. The first floor was designated to be a storehouse for all the Japanese equipment, while the second floor was specifically for radio communication. The next 3 floors were set up as living quarters, and they were filled with bunk beds. Up to 12 people could reside on these floors at one time. The next couple of floors were used again for storage, while the top floor housed the light, as well as a rotation mechanism powered with a 595-pound weight. Amazingly, the light that was produced by this lighthouse could be seen up to 19 nautical miles away. After about 50 years of sharing the island in peace, the Russians decided they wanted it all to themselves. In the midst of World War II, they annexed the whole place, which caused roughly 500,000 Japanese to evacuate back to Hokkaido. Eventually, the tenure of the island was officially given to the Russians when the Treaty of San Francisco was signed in 1951. Even though the fight over Sakhalin was over, territorial issues continued over the remaining smaller surrounding islands. Russia took over operations in the Aniva Lighthouse after obtaining the rights to the whole island. However, in 1990, personnel working there were recalled, and it was then switched to automatic mode, meaning that it could work on its own without someone being there. The lighthouse was then equipped with radioisotope thermoelectric generators that powered the system until 2006. Today, this amazing spectacle of Japanese and Russian innovation sits completely abandoned. The lighthouse is no longer in use, and although it is safe to visit, soon it may become quite dangerous. Parts of the tower have begun to deteriorate, and since the structure is made of concrete, some of the brickwork and metal doors have begun to rust. Regardless of the conditions of the lighthouse, it is still a popular tourist destination. Hordes of people still gather here for the breathtaking views, and many come for a rush of adrenaline. The structure is just a 2-hour boat ride from the island's nearest settlement, and in order to get to the base of the lighthouse, you'll have to climb a steep rock using ropes to approach it. Regardless of the struggles you may face to get there, a reward waits for those who dare to make the journey. Number 3. Rumu Prison. Rumu Prison was established in the late 1930s by the Soviet Union. However, surprisingly, the very first prison cell was not constructed until 1949. This amazing structure now sits in the middle of a lake with a depth of 20 to 33 feet, although it wasn't always this way. Interestingly, Estonia's most profitable natural resource is its limestone deposits. This is the main reason for the interesting location choice for the Soviet Union's prison, which sits right outside the community of Rumu. Inmates were the perfect candidates to perform the physical labor needed to extract the limestone from the quarry. In 1991, when Estonia regained its independence after the collapse of the USSR, the active water pumps and the quarry itself were abandoned. Because of this, groundwater began to flow into the structure. It filled a large hole and sent some of the buildings to an early watery grave. However, Mother Nature works in mysterious ways, and the stunningly blue water surrounding the white, ashy cliffs began to allow lush green vegetation to engulf the area. The location of the Rumu Prison is now known as the Blue Lagoon, and it is a highly visited destination for tourists and locals alike. If you enjoy sunbathing, you can hang out on the shore, or even try to scale the steep cliffs that envelop the quarry. More adventurous folks can swim out to the ruins and dive off the highest point of the prison into the waves below, just like Pocahontas in the famous Disney movie. Scuba divers often visit the quarry to explore the half-submerged structure. With their oxygen tanks and flippers, they can dive down and see firsthand the natural underwater museum that the old prison has seemingly transformed into. Beneath the crystal water, you will find machinery, barbed wire, old mining equipment, brick walls, and even prison cells, which make for quite a unique and fascinating experience. However, if you do decide to visit Rumu Prison, take caution if you go diving. There have been multiple accidents that have resulted in death for many people. So many deaths, in fact, that it is rumored that the whole place will be completely closed soon. Jumping from the top of the prison sounds like a good time, but there is a lot of dangerous debris at the bottom of the water that could cause significant damage, like barbed wire and rusted metal. Some even go as far as to say that the place is haunted due to the sheer number of deaths that have occurred here. Would you rather explore the underwater ruins of a long-abandoned civilization or hike to the top of the mountain to see an incredible deserted castle? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. Number 2. Dome House. About 300 feet from the shore of Cape Romano Island, situated in the 10,000 islands of Collier County, Florida, you'll find the now abandoned Dome House. Most homes you see today are square or rectangular in shape, but the Dome House is, you guessed it, dome-shaped. It consists of 6 structures in total on top of long stilts that keep them elevated. The building was constructed in 1982 by Bob Lee, a retired independent oil producer. Interestingly, Lee owned the house twice. He sold it in 1992, then financed the sale and got the house back, just to sell it again. Lee spent a lot of time during the years of 1978 and 1979 purchasing land in the hopes of building the perfect vacation home. Once he found the ideal spot, he bought 4 plots of land adjacent to one another for his project. He began construction in 1980, and it started out as a concrete structure that was painted white. He eventually had to purchase a barge so he could transport supplies for the building. The house included 6 interconnected dome structures. Each dome made up the different rooms of the home, and some of them even had 2 stories. In total, the building was 2,400 square feet, and it featured 3 bathrooms and 3 bedrooms. Jane Maples, Lee's daughter, was interviewed by Florida Weekly, and she said that her father thought the corners of the rooms were wasted space. She continued, saying, "He thought the dome ceiling gave the feeling of openness." The dome house was built using concrete that was made using the sand on the island. The home was completely self-sustaining, and it was fixed with all the amenities that you would find in a luxury house. It uses solar panels in order to generate power for its modern kitchen, huge hot tub on the deck, and the satellite television. This structure was originally built on dry land, and the distance from the house to the Gulf was just a short walk away. However, over time, the natural elements have converted the domes into a home on the water. In 1992, Hurricane Andrew swept over South Florida and hit the unique structure. Some of the windows were broken, but much of the building remained intact. However, disaster struck once again in 2005 when Hurricane Wilma damaged the house further and also severely eroded the beach. The straw that broke the camel's back was the most recent natural disaster, Hurricane Irma. In 2017, the hurricane smashed into the building and consequently sunk 2 of the original 6 domes. The years went by and the shore continued to erode, turning the once pristine vacation home into an abandoned, partly submerged ruin of its former self. Now, the Dome House is a place where pelicans and seagulls come to relax from their long journeys. In 2016, the building was only 80 feet away from the shoreline. However, today it stands around 200 feet from the beach. Although it is just a mere shadow of its original glory, the place is still a highly frequented spot for thrill seekers and self-proclaimed explorers. The only way to get to the Dome House is by water travel, since there is no bridge to Cape Romano. Some opt for paddleboards or kayaks, but the most efficient way to get there is by boat, since it is a 5 to 7 mile journey from the shore. If this sounds like an interesting place you'd like to visit, you might want to act fast before another storm wipes out the remaining 4 domes. Number 1. Hashima Island. Off the coast of Nagasaki, Japan, is the long-abandoned Hashima Island. However, many know this place as Gunkanjima, which translates to Battleship Island. It's about 9 miles from the center of the Japanese city and is only one of the 505 uninhabited islands that are known about in the Nagasaki prefecture. In total, it is only 16 acres, which doesn't seem as big as it looks from pictures of the island. This abandoned place is sadly a reminder of Japanese war crimes, as it was a place of forced labor before and throughout the Second World War. The most prominent features on the island are the eerie, deserted concrete buildings. They have remained completely undisturbed by mankind, although Mother Nature has begun to reclaim the island it once owned. This place is also a symbol of the rapid industrialization of Japan. When it was first established in 1887, the island was well known for its abundant underwater coal mines. In 1890, Mitsubishi purchased the land, and the company then developed seawalls around the island so they could begin extracting the coal. This was Japan's first large undersea coal exploitation. In order to house all of the miners, a 7-floor apartment block was constructed in 1916, but due to the small size of the island, the living space for each person was only about 5 feet. This was the first giant reinforced concrete structure ever built by the Japanese. It was put together with sturdy concrete because that would help protect the building from typhoon damage that would likely destroy any other building material. Concrete was also used to create a hospital and a school for the growing community. At one point, the population rose to about 5,259 people, which was its peak in 1959. However, the island and its main purpose quickly declined as the coal reserves started to empty. It is also known that during the 1960s, petroleum became a lot more widely used, and it slowly started to replace coal mines all across the country and world. In 1974, all of the natural resources were completely depleted, and soon after, the mine was closed for good. Just a short time later, the mine was abandoned, and so too was the entire island, and the residents that once inhabited this place all left in search of a better life. This place has now been fully deserted for the last 3 decades. The history of Hashima Island is not simple at all, and it would be irresponsible to gloss over these facts. Throughout World War II, the Japanese wartime mobilization policies enlisted Chinese prisoners of war and Korean civilians to work as forced laborers. They were involuntarily made to work under extremely harsh conditions, and it's believed that over 1,000 of these workers died while on the island during the 1930s. Most of these unfortunate men and women died from exhaustion, malnutrition, and unsafe working environments. Despite Hashima Island's negative past, Mitsubishi transferred its ownership to Takashima Town in 2002. Then in 2005, it was absorbed by the city of Nagasaki. Over the next couple of years, restoration of the collapsed walls began, and the long, undisturbed housing complexes were then opened to the public in 2009. The island has since been adopted by UNESCO and has been on the World Heritage List since 2015. Which of these abandoned places on the water would you most like to visit? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next time for more amazing content. Bye!